regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Welcome to another edition of Bearing Arms, Cam and Company. My name is Cam Edwards. Glad you're with me on the program today. We have got a great conversation coming up here in just a moment or two. Mr. Kosei Ohno with Virgin Islands Safe Gun Owners. This is a brand new group that really came about because of this sweeping gun ban bill that has been introduced in the Virgin Islands. We've been talking about this at Bearing Arms for the past few months. The games that have been played with this bill where, it's been pulled from committee after people have come up to testify. And, it's we've seen that before in other states. It's bad enough when it happens in the mainland, right? Let's say Boston, Massachusetts. You go and you drive down to the State House. You got to deal with I-95 and all the idiots on the road there, and you get there, and then, we're not going to let you testify because the bill's been pulled. I think it's even more egregious, though, when you're talking about, several islands where it's not an easy, it's even more difficult. It's not like it's happening on the interstate, right? You got to get on a boat. You got to get on a plane in order to get to these committee hearings. And then at the last minute, we're pulling the bill from consideration. We don't need your input today. Oh, we'll maybe let you know when we're going to bring the bill back up. But we may not, because the rules allow us to just bring it up at the drop of a hat. It not only is the bill itself, as written, an egregious violation of our right to keep and bear arms. Again, the sausage making is infuriating here in the Virgin Islands. So we've been covering this at Bearing Arms for the past few months. I kept reading about this guy named Kosei Ohno, who is, in opposition to this bill. He's been involved in litigation dealing with the Virgin Islands licensing law for handguns, basically for concealed carry. And I thought, I really want to get this gentleman on the program. So I was able to reach out. We were able to connect, and again, just a fascinating conversation. We're definitely going to have him back, because I feel like we only scratched the surface on the infringements that are taking place here in the U.S. territory of the U.S. Virgin Islands, where the Second Amendment applies. It's not like just because this is a territory, well, you get to mess around with the Second Amendment. It only half applies. Kind of like being a little pregnant. No. The Second Amendment fully applies in the U.S. Virgin Islands, and it is being abused and infringed like you would not believe. Take a look and a listen. Kosei, thank you so much for joining me on the program. It's really good to meet you, sir.
Nice to meet you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I've been reading about you for months in the Virgin Islands Consortium, and so it is nice to finally get a chance to have this conversation. I wish it were under better circumstances, but unfortunately, you are dealing with what it sounds to me like if this were to become law, this would be the most restrictive ban on so-called assault weapons anywhere in the United States and its territories.
I would say that characterization is correct. It's very expansive. It's very punitive. It gives what makes it most punitive and most dangerous is because it currently has in the U.S. Virgin Islands law, existing law, which was modeled after New York law, almost word for word. And that's I'm quoting some of the prominent lawyers in the territory. They, in effect, give discretion to the police commissioner, and they use words like "to the satisfaction of the police commissioner." So they use that currently in a way that is abusive, in our opinion, and to deny existing without law and or regulations. They have been denying certain firearms, even though it's not even in the regulations, not even in the law. And that's the part that abusive language to the satisfaction of the police commissioner. And that combined with this particular bill that in effect is an assault weapon ban, magazine, high capacity magazine ban, suppressor ban, even if it's registered with ATF and you paid your tax stamp, and various accessories, including scopes, all will be subject to the approval of the police commissioner. If it's to their satisfaction. So combine the bill with the existing law that Bruin in 2022 said it was unconstitutional, those kind of discretionary subjective standards, we think is unconstitutional, and it makes this even worse because they almost could do anything, confiscate, and without compensation.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, if you possess now a firearm that would be banned under this bill, you don't get to keep it, right? There's no grandfather clause in there. You either have to, as I understand it, modify it so that it meets the satisfaction of the Virgin Islands police. You have to take it out of the Virgin Islands. You have to hand it over to the police, again, without compensation, right?
So if you choose to do neither of those, one, confiscate, destroy it without compensation. Now, what makes this also a very potent and reason why most of our members are very diligent in wanting to know what the law is so we can follow it. And what makes what's happening in the Virgin Islands is very dangerous because they haven't published a rules and regulations since 1988.
Oh, good Lord.
1988. And nowhere in there are any of the rules that they're currently enforcing through their subjective measures and discretions. Nothing is followed since whatever is written in the rules and regulations. And my lawyer and I had to move heaven and earth to find it. And it's not listed anywhere. It's not made it easy for us to find. And so we know what the rules we need to follow. And what the kicker to the whole thing that makes it why we wanted to find out. There's a very, draconian law, I would say, or the idea was to be tough on criminals. They have a law if you're caught with an unauthorized possession of firearm in the territory, meaning it's not every firearm in the territory must be registered, irrespective of a 9mm AR, shotgun. In that process, it's not registered, unauthorized possession. Currently, minimum 10 years without a cap, up to life is what you could get in the U.S. Virgin Islands. And that combined with this ambiguity in the law or unconstitutional defects in the law is a very dangerous, I think, law that is currently there. So one of our missions, in addition to try to stop this current bill that is before the legislature that almost expands unlimited amount of power in the hands of the police commissioner and the director of firearms in a way that could be abused. And we think that is already happening. And we want accountability and transparency and in a process that could be, we could follow and the rules are clear. And more importantly, that if the registration process, which we are currently not fighting as members of ISGO, if that were to stay in place, it must become a nominal process in terms of fee. Currently, the fee structure, which is also very punitive, is $150 per gun if you register, per gun. To renew, initial fee is $75 per gun. And then 3 years later, when it expires, you have to renew it at $150 per gun. So if you are a collector, inherited firearms from your uncle who fought in Gulf War, those guns, 5 guns, 4 guns, collector guns, you could be easily looking at, thousands of dollars every 3 years right now as it's enforced. Now, there's a little bit of confusion as to what is the current period as it relates to the renewal period. But as the police department is currently enforcing is 3 years at $150. You have a husband with his Glock, his wife with her smaller, say, SIG, a shotgun and a rifle at home. You're looking at, $600 when you renew it.
That is insane.
And that is that one of the most insane and most expensive in the country, most punitive, most places, even other places I research, and correct me if you have other places they usually are, in the state of Washington, my home state, is like $35, and it's good for 5 years. And it's not attached to a specific gun, just like you wouldn't, a driver's license, you don't have to get a separate license for your mother's car or your
right.
Right. And so one of the things that we, are fighting currently, and maybe because we make it visual here, this is how many licenses I have to carry around.
That is insane.
Because one is for home protection, home business use, a different gun, or in this case, in my case, I have to rely on an older license to be as it ties to the litigation for it to be for the preliminary injunction to be benefit that I could use that particular license. They wanted to tie it to the older license, so I carry all of them.
And we're going to get into that litigation here in a minute, but I will just note too that ordinarily these fee structures, regardless of the cost, the initial application fee is more than the renewal fee. So the fact that this is flipped and it costs more to renew than it does to initially register a firearm is odd and unique, I think, in and of itself. All right, so let's talk a little bit about this bill. I want to talk about how the sausage is being made here, because this bill was introduced several months ago. There was supposed to be a hearing, week before last. So I understand it. You show up to testify. Luis Valdez from Gun Owners of America was there to testify. And the bill sponsor then yeeted the bill out of the committee and said, I'm pulling it back. We're going to rewrite this bill. We'll bring it back here in a few weeks. So you were not able to give your testimony.
And that was probably the most disappointing part of this whole process. We got wind of the bill, and soon after it got an official bill number. There's a system in the territory to track the bill. And in that process, we became aware of this bill, and it was August, I think, 26 or so. And by September 4th, it already was on the committee agenda to be heard. And this was, I was told, that was the typical, shorter than the typical 2 weeks, public notice before any kind of agenda gets onto the hearing. So there was truncated there. And then none of the stakeholders and legal firearm owners were invited to testify. I became aware of this issue late at night through one of my VISGO members. And I visibly wrote a opposition and a request to be heard that morning, starting at 6 a.m. until 10 a.m. when the meeting started. And we asked one of the senators, who was kind enough in this case, to bring it up to the hearing. And then, however, what was also disappointing is when the letter was introduced, but they wouldn't read it into the record, so it did not become part of the record. And then to go back a little bit, prior to that hearing taking place, I was actively working with the sponsoring senator's staff to try to get a meeting with the senator to express our concerns, our opposition. Now, some of the dates that they gave us were within a day or two, too short for us to accommodate. So they gave us a different date that we could accommodate. In this case, September 22nd was the date at the time. However, they were on pace at that point to get through all the committees in the committee of the whole, which is the final step, by the 17th of September. So there was already, I guess maybe call it a game session. By the time they actually met with me in that case, the bill was already law or passed the way it was set up. And that's the frustration that started there. And then I tried to send in my letter, would it not be read into the record? Fortunately, it moved to the Rules and Judiciary Committee, which is the next step. Mm-hmm. When it made it there, the Senator Carla Joseph, kindly invited us to participate. Although it was a very short notice, because I got a notice on Friday that was my invitation or my request for testifying was accepted, but the pace in which it was on the agenda was next Monday. So I was out of state at the time, so I had to fly, in this case, 14 hours to get back in time to St. Thomas. The hearing was then held in the sister island, St. Croix. I don't know if you have visited the beautiful islands of the U.S. Virgin Islands. And St. Croix, they split time between the committee hearings. So after I got back, 14 hours of travel, then I got on a plane to fly to St. Croix. And I was given initially it would be sometime in the afternoon. So I just wanted to make sure I wouldn't miss, that I'm not there. So I show up early, 11:30. And I started attaching additional exhibits, because I was also wanted to, represent other testimonials from our group. Mm-hmm. So busily working, preparing for my testimony. I waited another 5-6 hours, in this case, until 5 o'clock, and their previous agenda was being discussed. 5 minutes before I going to testify, and I had members who braved the ocean from St. Thomas to St. Croix. One of them got his boat out, and the waters during that time gets really rough. So it was a very, very heartwarming effort on my members' parts to show up. Mm-hmm. And they were there to support my testimony. 5 minutes before, they said we're pulling it for technical reasons. So that's another time. And so cumulatively, we've been trying, and then they'll say we'll bring it up in the potentially next meeting. It was adjourned to the next meeting. So we don't know because based on the rules and regulations, they're allowed to bring it up at the last minute if somebody seconds the motion. So for those reasons, we also showed up to the next meeting,
Yeah.
which they did, but they didn't bring up the bill. It never made it on to the. So then there was another meeting, committee of the whole is what they call it, where all the senators join. And even though it didn't pass the Rules and Judiciary Committee, I was procedurally, if somebody were to second the motion, they could immediately go into a Rules and Judiciary Committee and vote on it, and then immediately then vote in the committee of whole and pass it as law from the legislative perspective. So in case those kind of maneuvers or procedures were to take place, albeit within the rules of the legislature, so we wanted to be there too.
Yeah.
So I showed up for that, which they didn't attempt at that time. And then finally, we were again October 9th invited to testify when it was officially on the agenda, and we got enough time to prepare in advance. And I selected members. We had to make the size of the testifiers a little bit smaller, even though we had 12 people who wanted to testify with the diverse backgrounds, knowledge, and experience as stakeholders and so forth. Then came the day of the meeting in which we had the room full of cross-section of our community. We thought we should have been heard. We should have, even if the decision was to send it back because the bill was not ready. But what's the harm in letting us speak?
Absolutely. I mean, especially after everything that you guys have gone through to try to present your side here. I didn't realize that it was that extensive. The efforts to stop
5 minutes.
Testifying.
5 minutes was we were all given it, and then between all of us was four of us. It would have been 20 minutes in total. They argued over should it go back without hearing us longer than that, and that's when I had my pocket constitution in my kind of pocket, so I thought it was the opportune time to protest in silence.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's where we are right now, right? The bill's sponsor, the architect of this legislation, says he's going to rewrite it, right? But we haven't seen any details, nor has he reached out to you to get your input on any revisions.
Correct. So as it relates to, so after we were denied on October 9th, on Thursday, and Friday I get an invitation, saying that you could come and testify. We invite you to testify a week from that day, which would have been Friday, the 17th.
Okay.
At that point, we haven't seen the amendments. I haven't seen it over the weekend. And come Tuesday, I still haven't seen anything. And I was then, informed in my invitation that my testimony in writing should be submitted by noon on Thursday, which was only a few days away. That's assuming I had everything to evaluate and understand and get some inputs from all my members, as well as lawyers who are helping me in voluntary fashion in this case. Mm-hmm. To address some of the concerns. So that's when I wrote my email to the senator saying, hey, this is, I think, possibly unfair, and we certainly can't get to a complex constitutional issue and give our feedback in 2.5 days. So,
yeah. And even now, I mean, has the text of the revised bill been released?
No, it has not.
Yeah. Okay.
So since then, they have pulled the bill for the 17th, which the meeting didn't take place.
Yeah.
And we haven't heard anything as to when it and how it will be reintroduced.
All right, so let's get into the politics of this for a second, because as I said, I read the Virgin Island Consortium. They talk about how this bill has generated a lot of opposition. I mean, clearly there is now a formal group, VSGO, right, that has come together. Gun owners have come together and have organized, in large part thanks to your leadership, to oppose this measure. I ran across a story from the consortium. This one I think was back in January of this year, Kosei, and it was the governor of the Virgin Islands talking about the need to reform the gun laws, not to make them more restrictive, but to actually make it possible for people, make it easier for people to legally own firearms. So, what do you think the chances of defeating this bill in the Senate? Because there is a unicameral legislature in the Virgin Islands, so this is it. It's the Senate. What are the chances of defeating this bill before it gets to the governor's desk? And then what are the chances of the governor vetoing this bill if it gets to his desk?
Well, historically, I certainly was aware of that article in January, and I was appreciative appreciative of the governor's, giving his guidance or his thought process, because I think what he was saying in that article is correct. They have been, consistently making the laws in the territory restrictive, in also the process of obtaining firearms procedurally very cumbersome and restrictive. But it has not produced the effect that everybody has been wanting to see, which is a reduction in, certain types of crime, violent crimes, and so forth. So it has the appearance. I call it it's an appearance of a something it will do, but in fact it won't. I guess the lawyers will say that maybe that's a specious argument, and where it sounds like it will work on surface, but you go step 2 and 3, it doesn't work. The reason is one of the testifiers on the October 9th hearing, in which we were denied, was a former firearms director by the name of Bernard Burke. And he has been somebody who's been observing this. He's been retired since. He was also a National Guard members who had 2 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. And he had his view is that people who register and come in and give you your fingerprints. And one of the things I didn't know until I spoke with him, we also, in our case, are asked to provide our social security numbers. Now, most of our members have complied in the past because we don't really have anything to hide in the form of a background check, but it has been effective from his perspective. Maybe the effective is that no criminals come in with their firearms and register.
Yeah.
So the statistics that we wanted the committee to study further by obtaining this information, based on anecdotally and from many lawyers I know, as well as the firearms director himself, basically people who come and register firearms, those registered firearms don't get used in crime.
Yeah.
So the need to, so to speak, penalize us further by nitpicking the definitions and what we could register and not register, it's basically rearranging the deck chairs in Titanic. Not the issue that it's going to make a difference, because the criminals who bring in their firearms illegally or obtain it illegally do not register it, and they use it for illegal purposes. And therefore, the testifiers themselves have said it won't change the outcome of the crime.
And I completely agree with that. I mean, we see this, in the mainland too, where you can have very restrictive gun laws and the criminals don't care about those laws, whether they're gun-free zones, whether they're registration requirements, licensing requirements. They're violent criminals. They're committing armed robberies. They're committing home invasions. They don't really care about having the proper paperwork. But again, getting back to the political reality right now, is there a chance to defeat this bill outright, do you think?
Well, that's our goal. And one of the reasons why we think we have a chance, because we have, as part of my effort, as a group, we circulated a petition. Last time I checked, we were over 630 people, mostly from Virgin Islands, signed this petition in very, very short order. And so initially, I think the perception, and like anything, I was the tip of the spear at the time for filing my lawsuit. And then so there was maybe a perception that this might be a one-off complaint, but the truth was, when I filed my lawsuit, there was an outpouring of people reaching out to me. And it was basically, thank you, and it's happening to me too. And it's a form of me too, in a voluminous way, in which I was, sympathetically and asked to, continue with my litigation. So
we should mention, by the way, this lawsuit involved licensing, right? And basically the discretionary issuance of a permit. As I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong here, but you were denied a license because they said you didn't live in the Virgin Islands full time. Is that basically the gist of it?
Yeah. So my primary residence currently is state of Washington,
Okay.
but I have significant business in the territory, so I go in and out as needed. And so my driver's license will be the state of Washington. I have a concealed carry permit in the state of Washington. So I split time with the Virgin Islands. So initially, there was no requirement. Since 2018, I have been a registered concealed carry firearm in the U.S. territory here in Virgin Islands. And so I was approved twice prior to this. The exact same model of gun, exact same quantity, and nothing has changed in terms of my records. However, the only thing that changed was the commissioner and the director of firearms. And this is where suddenly I am told, oh, we want more. Oh, we want a driver's license. They wouldn't even take my application initially when I submitted. When I tried to submit it, because they said, "Oh, you don't have a VI driver's license. We're not going to even accept your application." And so I said, "That doesn't sound right. I never had to do it before." I consulted at that time then my counsel, and there's no law to that effect. That what they were trying to say is the case. And so they backed off of that initially, and then but they found something else. The goalpost moved. Oh, we don't let anybody have this kind of firearm. Oh, this and that. And then I said, where does it say that in the law? We would write back and say, this doesn't say anywhere in the law nor in the regulation for 1988. So again, what under what authority are you denying it?
Yeah.
And then the next one said, oh, it's a ATF reg, it's a this and that. ATF that says it's this, that. I said, well, that doesn't apply here. It's not part of our law. So those are the reasons why it kept. And then I was still trying to work out an amicable solution, because litigation a lot of times is not really the best solution if you can work something out. So
right.
With my counsel, we were trying to get some resolution, and we couldn't get it. And what makes it a little bit egregious in the territory is if I disagree with the commissioner's decision, the only solution I have to appeal it, I have to file a lawsuit in the Superior Court of the Virgin Islands within 15 days, or I lose my opportunity forever. And most people don't even know that requirement. And if you go in as an individual, by the time you probably find a lawyer, that time might have passed. And the standard is fraud or misrepresentation that I have to prove that was committed in order for my firearms decision to be reversed.
Oh,
very,
wow.
very high standard, very punitive, very difficult. So for those reasons, the lawsuit was filed in the Federal District Court of Virgin Islands.
Okay.
Which reports to the Third Circuit, if we have to go that far.
Okay. All right. Well, I want to have you back on the program, and I want to talk more about this case. Obviously, I want to talk more about this legislation. Unfortunately, we're going to run out of time here in a couple of minutes, but I do quickly want to get to VSGO, Virgin Islands Safe Gun Owners, right? This is the group that you've started here, and tell me about this, because it sounds like before now there really wasn't a way for gun owners in the U.S. Virgin Islands to come together and to lobby as an organization. So I think it's again, I hate that it's happening under these circumstances, but it is exciting to see this grassroots start to coalesce here in the territory.
It is very encouraging in the speed in which people have come together. And if the issues were clear, most our VSGO members, we started, the first meeting I organized, we had 7 or 8 people show up. And then from there, everybody, basically reached out to their friend and their friend. And now we're over 100, close to 190 members in a territory with 100,000 people in total population. We're in an election where senators could become a senator or not with 200 votes. It is actually a very it's as an active group. This is not the passive; it's an active group. And then combined with the petition, in which we get approaching 700 people, the group has evolved, and we're trying to get organized further. And as of today, we have a webpage that is up, and I wanted to share with your audience, which is it's it's visgo340.org, VISGO 340.org. And that's where people could kind of get the up-to-date information. We communicate and stay in touch with the members actively through WhatsApp. So as our group grows, that might be one way in which we communicate in a quicker way. And then in the future, through the webpage and announcements, and try to increase our membership. So and then separately, I am trying to, so I could keep my litigation going, to get a opinion that could benefit the entirety of the group, which is going to take time and money if they continue to fight. So that's where I also have a personal GoFundMe a page to combat and try to have some financial resources to fight, because I don't have currently a large Second Amendment group that could assist me in my litigation in this one. So that's something also I'll be looking for some assistance in the future.
Well, hopefully you'll get it. And what is the GoFundMe? Can we just look up your name? Is that the easiest way to do so?
Yeah, it probably, being my name is being unique, Kosei Ohno. I just it's at GoFundMe.com. I think I don't have the exact link handy because it was something a little more computer issued
Right.
link.
Yeah.
So I think if you were to search a Second Amendment, restore Second Amendment to the U.S. Virgin Islands
Okay.
in Kosei Ohno, under GoFundMe, you should be able to find my page to so that you could potentially review the facts and make a decision to assist us in that regards.
Well, listen, I got to say, Kosei, I really appreciate it. Not just you joining me here today, but I appreciate all of the work that you're doing. Again, flying 14 hours and then hopping on another plane to get to St. Croix to testify. I mean, that alone, even if you had been allowed to testify, that would have been amazing. But the fact that you did all of that and then were denied is just so aggravating to see. But I implore you, please keep up the work. We are going to continue following what you're doing there in the Virgin Islands. Would love to have you back on the program the next time you've got an update. As soon as we see the revised text of this gun ban bill, it's not just a gun ban bill, gun ban, magazine ban, suppressor ban, licensing requirements if you want to own a rifle or shotgun, all kinds of new restrictions there. Again, we want to have you back. This is something that we're definitely paying attention to. The Second Amendment applies in the Virgin Islands just as it does in the 50 United States and every other territory. So thank you again for what you're doing. I look forward to doing this again very soon.
Thank you very much for your time and the invitation. Thank you.
Thanks to Kosei for joining us on the program. And we will definitely be having him back again in the very near future. All right. Right now, let's turn our attention to today's armed citizen story, our good deed of the day, and our recidivist report will start there with a case out of Douglas County, Kansas, where a judge has granted a downward departure all the way down to probation for a felon who led police on a high-speed wrong-way chase down a Kansas highway, putting the officers, and putting other people on the road at risk of serious harm. This was back in 2021, but the case only resolved yesterday, Tuesday. Christopher Dale, 37 years old, granted probation after Douglas County Judge Amy Hanley ruled in his favor and against the DA's office, who had simply asked for the prison sentence that was presumed under state sentencing guidelines. But Dale's attorney, Jessica Glendenning, argued to the judge that her client was a changed man. Unrecognizable, she said, from his earlier days in the criminal justice system, night and day difference. And that the community and himself would benefit more from him remaining in society where he could earn a living and continue to work in his sobriety than from his incarceration. Yeah. So let's get to the details of this case. By the way, Dale, who's 37, has convictions for arson, aggravated assault, aggravated robbery, theft, burglary, and fraud, going back at least 2 decades. Just keep that in mind. Now, none of that technically matters. The case before you, although I would argue, again, if we're talking about someone's character, somebody being a changed man, that does matter. But anyway, in this particular case, Dale was accused of leading police on a high-speed chase after he failed to stop at a stop sign in Eudora, Kansas. Chase took place between Eudora and Lawrence through a cornfield. Eventually, it included Dale driving at high speed and into oncoming traffic on Highway 10, as well as several surface streets or several neighborhood streets. Near the Kansas 10 and Iowa Street intersection in Douglas County, deputies used basically a pit maneuver to spin Dale's vehicle into the ditch, but he was able to get back out on the highway before deputies pinned it in a parking lot there in Douglas County. At one point, 2 handguns were thrown from the vehicle. At least one of the guns recovered was determined to be stolen. At one time, Dale had been charged with 11 counts of aggravated assault, 2 counts of aggravated endangering a child, 2 counts of possession of a firearm by a felon, 1 count of criminal damage, which was to the cornfield apparently, 1 count of felony fleeing and eluding. But in a plea deal with the state this summer, every one of those charges was dropped, except for fleeing and eluding and criminal possession of a firearm. And Dale pleaded no contest to the 2 remaining charges. Now, at the time this high-speed chase took place in 2021, Dale was also on felony bond related to charges in Wyandotte and Leavenworth counties. Yeah. So again, Dale's attorney said, look, all of those previous crimes, all of them, going back 20 years, can be tied to his drug addiction. His abuse as a child, neglect when he was a kid, never having a, quote, role model of a law-abiding adult. But she said since then, he has successfully entered rehabilitation. He is amenable to probation. Damn straight he is when he's looking at prison time. Yeah. And his acceptance of responsibility as, quote, substantial and compelling reasons for the judge to give him probation. She said sending him to prison will result in his losing substantial progress towards his self-improvement. He addressed the court as well, telling the judge, I'm passionate about my recovery. Every charge I've ever had, he says, was drug-related. Now, again, the convictions that I talked about don't involve drugs. Maybe at the heart of those previous criminal offenses. But, I mean, okay. Look, here's the deal. If Christopher Dale has gone through rehabilitation, he is no longer addicted to drugs. That is fantastic. That's great. I am truly happy for him. I hope that he stays on the straight and narrow. That does not absolve someone of their criminal actions. It just doesn't. And to say I'm a changed man, well, the law hasn't changed. So, I mean, am I being cold-hearted here? I don't think so. The one mitigating factor is that Dale spent 18 months in jail while awaiting the conclusion of his case. So he has done some time behind bars. But I got to say, part of the reason why he spent those 18 months behind bars is because he was in jail for other offenses in other counties. So, which, again, kind of, to me, cuts against the idea that, no punishment is necessary here because Christopher Dale is a changed man, unrecognizable from who he was just 4 years ago. Your mileage may vary. I think that it would have been appropriate to at least apply the minimum sentence that was suggested under the Kansas sentencing guidelines rather than depart downward to the point where he's a free man. All right, on to today's armed citizen story. This is a wild one out of Los Angeles. Headline from the New York Post. Customer fatally shoots alleged creep who groped shopper and then threatened to kill everyone inside an LA beauty store. Now, you can't use deadly force against a groper. Let's just make that abundantly clear from the get-go here. When you do, however, have a legitimate fear of death or great bodily injury, you are entitled to use deadly force, even in California. As the New York Post reports, deputies responded to reports of a shooting at Pink Beauty Supply in Compton. Around 3:30 Sunday afternoon, they found a man dead from a gunshot wound, according to the LA County Sheriff's Department. Officials said the man entered the store, followed a female customer before he groped her, which prompted employees to demand that he leave. Instead, though, the man, according to the Sheriff's Department, quote, became increasingly verbally assaultive towards employees and customers, started throwing and damaging merchandise in the store. The Sheriff's Department says the incident rapidly escalated. Employees and customers noted that the male had an object in his hand that they believed was a knife. The male made verbal threats that he was going to kill and harm everyone in the store. Now, if he had just made those verbal threats, I don't know that would have been enough to use lethal force. But again, it looks like he's got a knife. He's threatening to kill everybody. At that point, I'd say it is reasonable to believe that he at least has the means and the intention of backing up his words with actions. So the Post says, after those threats were made, another female customer pulled out a gun and, quote, fired a warning shot at the suspect. We've talked about this on the program this week. Warning shots aren't a thing. If you are in fear for your life, you don't need to provide a warning to the person who's threatening to kill you. If you have a justifiable fear of death or great bodily harm, you shoot to stop the threat. You don't shoot to give them a warning. That is bad from a self-defense perspective. Frankly, it's also bad from a legal perspective, because you can get charged with illegal discharge of a firearm. Prosecutors can say, you must not really have believed that your life was in danger because you didn't shoot at the threat. You shot into the air. You shot into the ground. So, no. Keep your finger off the trigger. Don't fire around until you believe that your life is imminently in danger. And when you do act in those circumstances, you shoot to stop the threat. So she fired the warning shot. Guess what? Didn't work. According to the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, the man rushed at the armed female customer, probably to try to get the gun out of her hand. She fired a second shot at him, striking and killing him. CBS Los Angeles reported he was a 42-year-old man with possible gang ties and a criminal record that included assaults, robberies, and thefts. New York Post says the customer who pulled the trigger did so out of fear for her safety. According to the Sheriff's Department, was not arrested. She's cooperating with detectives during the investigation. LA County DA's office will decide whether the woman needs to face charges. Is she a licensed concealed carry holder? Don't know. If she is, she's among one of the few in Los Angeles County. Again, don't forget, there is both litigation filed by the California Rifle and Pistol Association and other Second Amendment groups against the needlessly long delays of a year or more in processing concealed carry applications in Los Angeles County. The DOJ Civil Rights Division has also filed a formal lawsuit over those delays, not to mention the hundreds of dollars it costs to apply for a concealed carry permit in Los Angeles County. So I don't know if she was legally permitted to carry that firearm. She could have acted in self-defense, and she could still be facing charges for illegally possessing a gun. Even though it sounds like she saved not only her life, but the lives of others in that store. So we will keep our eyes open for any more details here. But at this point, not facing charges for the shooting, because it sounds like, again, she was acting in self-defense. It'll ultimately be up to the LADA's office to decide whether she'll face charges. Based on what the LA Sheriff's Department described, even in Los Angeles County, I would be shocked if she's charged with the shooting. I would not, however, be shocked or surprised if she's charged with violating some of the possessory gun laws in California if she did not have a active permit for that handgun. Finally today, our good deed of the day in the right place at the right time, willing and able to do the right thing. Neighbors in Atlanta, Georgia, who rescued a police officer who ended up crashing into a home while responding to another officer's call for help. This was over the weekend. A responding officer was driving to assist that officer who had requested backup. And according to Deputy Chief Charles Hampton Jr., he ended up crashing into this home, lost control, struck a house at the intersection of James P. Brawley Drive and North Avenue. Both the vehicle and the home caught fire after that crash. When Atlanta Fire Department crews got there, they found a working structure fire and a vehicle crash behind the home. But neighbors were able to rescue that officer before crews even arrived. David Pitts is one of the residents there who helped. He said, heard a loud crash, came running down the street. When I got to the scene, I seen the officer's car in the back of the house. It was on fire. He said flames were already coming from the hood. Gasoline was leaking. He saw the officer was still inside and unresponsive. He said he tried to open the door, but it was locked, so he smashed the window with a brick. He said I busted the glass out next to the side mirror so it wouldn't hit him, and then I stuck my hand inside and opened the driver's side door from the inside. He said when I opened it, he fell out into my arms. Another neighbor helped drag the officer to safety. Apparently ammunition started popping off inside the burning cruiser. Pitt said the whole driver's side caught on fire. We had to pull him back even more because the car just started exploding. He said he had no time to be scared at the moment. He said my first action was just to spy on a way to save him. He said I just couldn't stand there and watch the man die. So the officer appeared to be in significant pain until a woman who identified herself as being a nurse arrived on scene, started talking to him to keep him awake. Pitt said it was surreal. He said he was just thankful that he was nearby to help. He said, for me to receive blessings, I've got to give a blessing. So I'm just glad he put me there at the right time. The deputy chief said the actions of Pitt, the other neighbor, the nurse, may very well have saved the officer's life, saying that we're extremely grateful for those citizens to assist the officer, putting themselves also in harm's way. So in the right place at the right time, willing and able to do the right thing. David Pitts and the other anonymous Good Samaritans coming to the aid of this Atlanta police officer, we thank you for your very, very good deed. Now, I know today's program has been a little bit longer than usual. I'm kind of glad in that respect. I am, fingers crossed and knocking on wood, hopefully going to be with you tomorrow. But, as you know, for the past few weeks, my dog has just been having some health issues, and she has taken a pretty significant turn for the worse over the past 24 hours. So I've got a vet appointment, 8:30 tomorrow morning. I'm hopeful that I will be out and we will have a plan of action. But it is possible, and I'm steeling myself for this possibility, that I will not be around tomorrow, that tomorrow is the day we're going to have to say goodbye. So if I am not here tomorrow, we don't have a show. You know why? I certainly appreciate your thoughts and prayers, because this is going to be a tough day. But we'll be back on Monday if we're not with you tomorrow. And in the meantime, appreciate the thoughts and prayers that maybe tomorrow is going to be a better day than I'm expecting. So I hope you have a great rest of your Hump Day Wednesday. And if we don't talk to you tomorrow, a great rest of your week as well. Be sure to check out BarronArms.com, though. Even if I am not around tomorrow morning, we are going to have you covered with all of the latest Second Amendment news and information from all across the nation. And be sure to check it out. If you like what you see, I would also encourage you to become a VIP Gold, or VIP Platinum member. We've got a great deal going on right now while the shutdown continues. Use the promo code POTUS47, POTUS47, and get 74% off of your VIP membership. No matter what tier of support you choose, you're going to get some excellent benefits. I would love for you to be a VIP Gold or VIP Platinum member so you can take part in our weekly live chat with Hot Airs Ed Morrissey and myself every Wednesday, 1:30 Eastern. But again, no matter which level of support you choose, we thank you for that support, because it really does make a difference. All right. Have a great rest of your Wednesday. I'll see you back here, fingers crossed, tomorrow. Until then, be well. Be safe.